The power of determination is a core concept in the story of Undertale. It's mentioned constantly in item descriptions, at save points, and brought up by multiple characters throughout the game. The very concept of determination shapes much of the narrative of the game, yet, in Deltarune, determination is strangely absent. In fact, the word determination, or the idea of being determined, only appears a handful of times in the entire game, being brought up 3 times by Queen and once by Gaster if you die during the night fight. So what exactly changed between Undertale and Deltarune for determination to suddenly disappear? To start, we need to break down what exactly determination is. Determination is a substance naturally produced in large quantities by humans and possessed in much smaller quantities by monsters, with some monsters having more determination than others. Alphys explains that this power is what allows human souls to persist after death, but we see in the Azrael fight that in high enough concentrations, this power can prevent death altogether. The fact that not a single human soul was taken during the war between humans and monsters reinforces this idea. Determination is also described as a power that can change fate, though this concept is not explored much in Undertale. The last thing to note is that, although all human souls possess large amounts of determination, red souls seem to possess an especially high amount of it, potentially allowing them to do things that other humans cannot. So what exactly does determination do in Undertale? For one, it's intrinsically tied to the save system in the game. The being with the most determination in the underground gains access to the save points and can save and load their progress as they please. This ability can only be held by one being in the underground at any given time, which we learn from Flowey, who says that he could no longer load his save file after we arrive due to our determination being greater than his. The Undertale Legends of Localization book also outright confirms this, saying that whoever has the most determination in the underground is able to use the in-game save menu functions. The ability to save and load is not unique to Frisk, and seems to be something every human that fell into the underground had access to, as several lines of dialogue throughout the game imply that characters are familiar with the consequences of saving and loading even prior to our arrival. We also see that, after absorbing the 6 human souls, Flowey gains access to 6 save slots, implying that each human had access to 1 save slot just like we do. One interesting thing in the case of Frisk, however, is that Flowey is shocked that our determination was able to surpass his own. His surprise at this fact becomes clearer when you consider his origins. We learn in the True Lab entries that Flowey was created as a vessel to store enough determination to be able to break the barrier. He was directly injected with determination by Alphys, and after returning the flower to the garden where Azrael's ashes had been spread, the same Azrael who had absorbed Kara's soul, he awoke as Flowey. By every metric, there is no way Frisk's soul should be able to surpass Flowey's level of determination, but the Legends of Localization book again provides an explanation for this, stating that it is the player's determination, not Frisk's, that is at play here, which is an idea that I'll double back to later. Determination seems to be something Gaster was researching, as Alphys uses his blueprints to create the determination extractor. How much Gaster knows about determination is unclear, but we at least have an extensive record of Alphys' research into the topic. Through her notes, we learn that determination is a physical substance that can be extracted from human souls and injected into monsters and other objects. When injected into objects, it can bring them to life, as we see with Flowey. But when injected into monsters in high enough quantities, their physical forms begin to melt and they turn into amalgamates. Monster bodies are made mostly of magic, and as such, cannot handle large amounts of determination, which is why they possess so little of it naturally. Some monsters, like Undyne, are shown to be able to seemingly manifest higher concentrations of determination in dire circumstances, and others, like Toriel and Asgore, possess a higher amount of it naturally, as their souls persist briefly after they die. But for the most part, monsters cannot handle large amounts of determination. In high enough quantities, the exact abilities of determination become amorphous. It is said that with the power of 7 human souls, a being becomes a god capable of nearly anything, which we see a glimpse of in Azrael's God of Hyperdeath fight, where he becomes an immortal being who can shapeshift. Though it's noteworthy that even here, the player's determination still seems to surpass his own. If a being with a high concentration of determination is left unchecked, it can lead to drastic changes in the game's world. We of course see this with Omega Flowey and Azrael, but also with the player, whose determination can lead to the true pacifist ending, where the monsters are freed from the underground, or the genocide ending, where the entire world gets deleted. One thing some people may not remember is that Undertale also has a prophecy. Its prophecy states that an angel who has seen the surface will return, and the underground will go empty. Both the true pacifist and genocide endings only achievable due to the player's determination, fall under the umbrella of Undertale's prophecy, which is why I find it odd that determination is described as a power that can change fate, since it seems that, regardless of what we do, fate plays out as intended. You can probably see where I'm going with this, but there's still some ground we need to cover before we can get there. As for Deltarune, I stated in the intro that determination disappeared in this game, but this isn't entirely true. Determination just plays a very different role than it did in Undertale. For one, saving in Deltarune seems to be entirely disconnected from the idea of determination. Almost every save point throughout Undertale mentions being filled with determination, but not a single one in Deltarune does. The save system seems to be wholly unique to Chris, since the first save point is described as a light only you can see, differing from the save system in Undertale, which we know has been used by multiple people. We also have access to 3 save slots instead of just 1, which would imply that whatever mechanism is allowing us to save is completely unrelated to the soul, as Undertale establishes that one human soul gets 1 save file. The only mention of determination in-universe comes from Queen, who describes it as the power that allows Lightners to open dark fountains, though determination in this context is used interchangeably with terms like will and concentration, so it's unclear whether determination is really what enables the ability to open dark fountains. Given the fact that Undertale rarely, if ever, substitutes determination for similar words, and given how much Deltarune seems to try and distance itself from the concept, I'm leaning towards this not being the case. I do however think that there is a reason Queen mentions determination here, which I'll cover in a moment. The only other mention of determination technically happens outside the game's world, in a conversation between the player and Gaster if you die during the night fight, where he asked if we are determined to try once more. And I believe that this interaction is the key to understanding the role that determination will play in Deltarune. It is my belief that where Undertale explored determination as the power to keep pushing forward, Deltarune will explore determination as the power to change fate. As I mentioned earlier, the primary source of determination in Undertale comes directly from the player, not from anyone in the game's universe. Gaster directly referencing the player's determination would imply that the same is true in Deltarune. But unlike with Undertale, we are not fully in control of the protagonist. In Deltarune, our determination is being intentionally limited. I believe this is due to determination's ability to change fate, or in other words, break the prophecy. We see in Undertale that determination is capable of outright rewriting the rules of reality, and Deltarune, a game strictly governed by the rules of its prophecy, seems to be aware of this possibility. The game views this ability as a threat, which is why it goes out of its way to suppress any mention of determination. This is why the prophecy makes Chris the cage. They act as a vessel to contain us and limit what we are able to do with this power. The game discarded our original vessel because it knows that if we were allowed to run wild, our determination could have disastrous consequences and potentially prevent the future it envisioned from ever occurring. Despite how much the prophecy seems to want to prevent our intervention, the fact that Gaster brought us into this world in the first place would imply that he plans to use our determination at some point to change the fate of this world. I actually explore this idea more in my Gastermind theory, which you should watch if you haven't already. But if the game goes to such great lengths to suppress even the mention of determination, why does Queen of all characters bring it up? Well, look at the context surrounding it. Determination is a power that, in a sense, is capable of breaking the game in high enough concentrations. We even see this directly with Kara at the end of Undertale's genocide route. And Queen mentions determination in direct relation to Noelle, a character very strongly associated with glitch hunting and breaking games, which we see through her blog post in Spamton Sweepstakes. Noelle seems to have a natural aptitude for determination, enough so that even Queen was able to notice it, which is part of why I believe that this, the red dot that appears on Noelle during the Weird Route in chapters 4 and 5, is the power of determination. The day after obtaining this power, Noelle immediately gains an intense resolve to break free from the path laid out for her. In other words, she became determined to change her fate. She even speaks of becoming more powerful, just like Kara does in Undertale when referencing their growing determination. And with this power, what does Noelle do? He does something that shouldn't be possible. He breaks the rules of the game and crosses the lake. The Weird Route in its entirety is a direct result of the player's influence, or the player's determination. Since Chris is containing our power and not allowing us to exercise it freely, we have to spread our influence to someone else, in this case, Noelle, in order to accomplish something with our determination. We can actually see a fair number of parallels between Noelle in the Weird Route and Kara in the Genocide Route. A character who is awoken by the player's determination then goes on to do something that shouldn't be possible, due to them becoming more powerful and gaining their own determination. There is no other power that we know of that can make Noelle capable of doing something like this. But if this is determination, why doesn't Noelle melt like the Amalgamates? Well, in Undertale, monsters are made of magic, so their bodies can't handle large amounts of determination. Since their bodies are not physical, they also don't bleed or use the bathroom. But in Deltarune, monsters do have bathrooms, and we see with Susie that monsters can bleed, which would imply that monsters in Deltarune have stronger physical forms that can handle large amounts of determination. Though this doesn't necessarily mean that there are no consequences that come with having high concentrations of it. Noelle's personality changes drastically after the incident in Chapter 4, enough so that even Susie notices that something is off during the festival, so it could be that the power of determination takes a mental toll on monsters instead of a physical one. This could also explain why Chris tries to keep us as far away from other people as possible, as even brief moments of contact with a level of determination this high could have adverse effects on monsters. The exacts on this aren't really important, but it's still interesting to think about. As of now, it's unclear what exactly us giving Noelle the power of determination accomplishes, but I guess we'll find out in later chapters. In short, determination is in Deltarune. It's just being suppressed outside of the weird route. And in the weird route, Noelle is the one with determination instead of Chris. But yeah, that's the video. Like, comment, subscribe, and such. Thanks for watching.